In today's show, we're going to be looking at all of Wednesday's games, talking about injuries to Ben Simmons and to Aaron Gordon, and then a preview of Thursday. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is also brought to you by rockauto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. So, we're here, NBA bubble going on. We're looking at all of Wednesday's games. We're previewing Thursday's games. So, let's get stuck into looking at those very games that I'm talking about. And the first game that we're going to talk about is the first game of the day. The Memphis Grizzlies, without Jaren Jackson Jr., go down to the Utah Jazz. 124-115. It was Brandon Clark who got the start. He was pretty disappointing, though. Just the 6 points in 27 minutes. He still had 2 steals and a block, but that scoring and efficiency was off. But Grayson Allen continues to be one of the big surprises in Orlando. 20 points, 27 minutes, 6 triples, not much else, and 70% shooting. But he's been really good, outplaying DeAnthony Melton, pushing Josh Jackson out of the rotation. Maybe when Tyus Jones comes back, it'll be a little bit harder for Allen, but he's been super impressive in this little stretch of games. Morant had 20 points as well with 6 rebounds and 9 assists. And without Jaren Jackson, Valanciunas played 34 minutes and had 21 and 14. So some big numbers from the big fella there. And we also got more Kyle Anderson minutes, 12, 3 and 4 for him in those 30. Well, Dylan Brooks, he scored a lot, sure, 23 points. But man, 17 attempts, 41% shooting, 8 of 10 from the line, no other numbers. I just don't think he's that good. He has poor shot selection. He makes curious decisions. He fouls so much. At some point, I think he fouled out again here. At some point, he's just not going to be a starting level player in the NBA. For the Jazz, Joe Ingles, Mike Conley, and Rudy Gobert also scored all over 20. Gobert 21 and 16 with 3 blocks. Conley 23, 5 and 7 with 4 threes. While Jingle and Joe knocked in 6 triples for 25 points with 5 assists. Probably his best game of the restart. The Donovan Mitchell.
He's good.
18, 7, and 6, but some pretty poor shooting, while Royce O'Neal continues to play really well. 15 and 7, 3 threes, a steal, and a block. Now, he's played pretty good minutes all year, but he hasn't been as fantasy consistent as what he's been through this bubble. So it's been an impressive thing to see from O'Neal. Jordy Clarkson, at least a little bit better, 14 points in 23 minutes. It did take him 14 shots to get there, and he's been quite up and down, and the rest of their bench really struggling. So Utah's depth, I think, is going to be a massive problem for them as we head into the playoffs, and that's not a huge surprise at all. Next one was the Denver Nuggets and the San Antonio Spurs. Still no Will Barton, still no Eche Homo, still no Gary Harris, but Michael Porter Jr. went off again. 36 minutes, 30 points, 15 rebounds. Now, 0 assists isn't great, but he hit 5 threes, shot 58%. How his usage looks and his playing time looks when these other guys is back is very interesting. I think he's going to probably stay as the starting small forward, but I'm not convinced of that. This is a great show, and he's looking fantastic, but how sustainable is it going to be, at least in the short term? I have some questions. Big Chungus, Nikola Jokic had 24, 4, and 18, while Jeremy Grant in 35 minutes had 22 points, while Paul Millsap, just the 17 minutes, he got into some foul trouble. Monty Morris was solid as usual, replacing Jamal Murray, 19, 2, and 4 in 35, while Torrey Craig had a couple of trips to the locker room, or at least one trip to the locker room, 8 and 4 in his 30 minutes. We know he's not a big contributor. Speaking of big contributors, the San Antonio Spurs.
Maximum Derek.
How good's this bloke? 23 and 3, 7 assists, 4 triples, 2 steals, and 1 block for maximum Derek White. I've told you that I really think he's a good player, and I thought he was dicked around hard all season. He didn't play well, to be fair, but he is good. We're seeing that he's good, and hopefully this is just the beginning, and we see him start to really take his game moving further. DeJounte Murray struggled, 4 points, but did have 3 steals. His shooting is off. He's not a creator at all. I'm not as high on DeJounte as others are, as many you will know. Well, DeMar DeRozan had 18, 5, and 8 with 2 blocks too. And how about big Kelden Johnson, who's looked really good? 20 points, yes, 70% shooting, but he's played really well. And again, at least the results came this way. 6 rebounds, 2 triples, really good stuff. And Rudy Gay had 24. And Patty Mills had 14 points in 22 minutes. Jakob Poeltl struggled a lot. 2 points, 7 rebounds in 26 minutes. Jokic was giving him trouble, and Drew Eubanks, I thought, played okay. Again, Eubanks looks pretty solid. As a backup center, a guy that's coming in his limited minutes and just doing what he needs to do. Lonnie Walker, another player I'm not high on, he's been really bad. Maybe really bad is harsh, but let's say he hasn't been good. 9 points in 21 minutes as a starter. I don't see the upside in him that many others do. And there's plenty of others that see lots of upside in Lonnie Walker. I'm just not one of them. The next game is the Sixers and the Wizards. Of course, the big news here from the Sixers is Ben Simmons had to leave this game with a knee injury. It isn't serious, which is great news. He's day-to-day, so I think he might sit out a game or so. And when he is out, Al Horford's a guy that gets the minutes. 30 minutes for Horf here, just the 2 points, but 10 rebounds and 5 assists. I wouldn't be expecting huge things, but I think he'll get some good playing time. Embiid had 30 and 11 with 3 steals and 2 blocks, while Shake Milton... Good shooting night. He's a great three-point shooter, this guy. 14 points, 3 threes, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. With Simmons out, it does help him somewhat. Toby Harris had 17, and Joshie Richardson had 15 points there as well. Matisse Thybulle hasn't really been able to get anything going here in the bubble. He did have 2 steals, so that was encouraging, but otherwise, nothing too exciting. For the Wizards, the tank, Tom Bryant. 2 guys who I was really high on heading into the season were Bryant and White, and they let me down big time. Mainly because their minutes weren't there, but now we're seeing them play minutes, and they're playing pretty bloody well. Bryant had 19 and 10 in 31 minutes. He had 2 steals and 4 blocks. Now, I don't think Bryant is a very good long-term center, because I think his defense is disqualifying. But in this scenario, he is just roasting guys, and he's putting up big numbers. Same as Jerome Robinson, who is not someone I thought was good, but he's scored well. 19 points, not much else. Actually, it's not fair. 2 steals. Working his way into a nice backup role, because of course when Beal and Wall return, he's not going to have these opportunities. While Troy Brown had 17, 8, and 4, and he's playing some pretty good basketball. Ish Smith completely taken over from Shabazz Napier, 30 minutes as opposed to 18, 12, 5, and 6 for Ish, while Rui Hachimura, 8 points in 39 minutes, 2 of 11 shooting, 8 rebounds, a steal and a block. He's not good. I don't think he's ever going to be good. The Kawhi Leonard comparison is laughable, in my opinion. But yeah, he's better than this. He's just not that good. If you want something that is good, why wouldn't you go to rockauto.com to get your car parts? That is the best way to do it. You don't go to your local auto store and they just have to sit there on the computer, type up looking for the parts that you need. rockauto.com has a catalog that is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Why would you go in somewhere and then have the guy tell you how long it's going to be and give you a price that's not competitive when you can just do all that work yourself? The prices at rockauto.com are always reliably low, and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? RockAuto.com is a family business, serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. Go to RockAuto.com to shop for auto and body parts for hundreds of manufacturers. And when you go there and see all the parts available for your car and truck, write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. All right, on to the next game. It is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They beat the Lakers comfortably, 105-86. No Dennis Schroeder, no Terrence Ferguson for the Thunder. Chris Paul was great, 21, 7, and 6, while Gilgeous-Alexander, horrible shooting for Shea, 13 points on 27%, but 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and a block looked pretty good, while the Italian cock, Danilo Gallinari.
Hands off my cock!
Only 25 minutes for Gallo, really just easing him in, but had 19 points, 7 rebounds, and looks pretty strong. While Luguentz Dort, haven't played this one for a while.
Bort? Oh, come on, Bort?
Mommy, buy me a license plate!
No, come along, Bort.
Are you talking to me?
No, my son is also named Bort.
Someone's son is named Dort, and he had 14 points here. Poor shooting, but played a lot of minutes with Terrence Ferguson out. Steven Adams had to go to the locker room with a knee injury, but he returned and played his usual 28 minutes, 18 and 7 for Adams. Poor free throw shooting, good field goal percentage, really what you expect, and the offensive output's a little bit better. At the end of the game, Andre Robertson did go to the locker room and never returned, so obviously we want to make sure he is okay and see what that results in, while Nerlens Noel had 2 steals and a block, and that is what Nerlens Noel does. For the Lakers, again, it was a blowout, so limited minutes. 29 for Davis. He had 9, 8, and 5. 30 minutes for LeBron. He had 19 and 11. Dion Waiters chipped in with 14 points in 26 minutes, but realistically, you can just throw this game out. It doesn't mean, most of these games don't mean anything for the Lakers as we move forward here. KCP had 5 points in 18 minutes. JaVale McGee had 6 points in 22 minutes with Dwight Howard out. Kuzma had another 10 points in 27 minutes. Realistically, just a rough game from the Lakers, who have no incentive to really try that hard, and they've got a back-to-back coming up Thursday. I imagine it'll be a little bit more of the same from them in that one. All right, on to the next one. We're looking at, in this one here, it is the Toronto Raptors beating the Orlando Magic pretty comfortably, 109-99. Looks like that's going to be the playoff matchup we get as well. Van Vliet did it again. 62% shooting, 21 points, 10 assists, 35 minutes, while Lowry, 38 minutes is too many, man. I don't know what we're doing here. 8 points on 9 shots, 9 rebounds, and 10 assists, while Marc Gasol.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark, indeed. He was super aggressive here. 13 points, 6 rebounds, only 25 minutes as they're comfortably managing him. And how about your mate, OG Anunoby?
But what about scarves?
OG.
Balenciaga
Stop,
ones.
OG. You better stop, OG.
OG didn't really stop because he shot 71% from the field, 12 and 5. He was strong. While Siakam, it's been a little bit disappointing, I'd say, here in the bubble, just in terms of fantasy output. Anyway, 15 and 6. And Norm Powell, at least he shot better. But he is nowhere near that player that he was before the season shut down. 14 points in 22 minutes. On to the Magic. Terrence Ross, 3 good games in a row, 15 points. For him, Vooch had just 12 and 9. He struggled. And Markelle Fultz, easily his worst game of the bubble. Just 19 minutes, 8, 4, and 3, while Augustin played 29 and had 9, 3, and 4. Fultz needs to get back to action. The big news for Orlando, I guess, is Aaron Gordon hurt his hamstring. 9, 11, and 5 with 3 blocks. 20 minutes played. Yeah, the numbers are okay. Hopefully it's not too serious. It didn't appear to be too serious, but they need him to do anything. They're not going anywhere in the playoffs, but they need him to at least be competitive. Or Fournier had 15 points, but shot poorly again. It was Gary Clark, it was Wes Iwundu, and it was Jimmy Ennis who took over from Carter Williams and Isaac. Clark had 10 points, Iwundu had 11, and Ennis struggled his way to 8 points on 12 shots because he is not that good. The last game we take a look at here is, speaking of not that good, the Brooklyn Nets, they get smacked by the Celtics, 149-115. It's all well and good for Karis LeVert to have so many shot opportunities, but when you're getting your ass kicked like this, you're just not going to play enough. 27 minutes, 13 and 5 with 2 steals and 2 blocks for Karis. Jarrett Allen had 11 and 8, while Smokin' Joe Harris had 14 and 6, but Jeremiah Martin led the team in scoring. Yes, Jeremiah Martin, that guy. 20 points, 16 minutes actually, 4 assists, looked pretty good. While Chris Chiozza, who played 31 minutes last game, only had 14. Lance Thomas, the 25 minutes that he is getting is completely unacceptable. It makes no sense when he is playing as much as he is. Give it to Kurucs. Give it to Musa. There is zero reason for Thomas to be playing this much. He's not that good. And Garrett Temple, who played like 38 minutes yesterday, played 5. I don't know what Jacques Vaughn's doing. I know his team's shit, but you can do things a lot better than this. And guys like Anderson and Hall didn't even play until the end of the game. So this is a team that's really hard to get a handle on. Tyler Johnson also not doing himself any favors to make him an NBA player next season. For the Celtics, the Rock DJ, Rob Williams, 18 points on 7 of 7 shooting, 3 blocks. We know he can put up numbers. It's like playing against the Wizards. It's not really an indication of how good you can be because these games just don't mean anything. They're pretty pointless. And we're having only 24 minutes for Jaylen Brown, only 18 minutes for Jason Tatum because this game was over so quickly. Wanamaker had 13. Marcus Smart, I think he needed it because he played so little yesterday. 12, 5, and 6 with 3 steals. But realistically, you got 26 minutes from Romeo Langford. Enes Kanter played only 5 minutes. They just went with something different because they knew that they could, and it doesn't matter. And this is, again, why these games, there's always going to be some weird ones because teams don't care. They're just trying to work things out, and there's going to be some really shit opponents. And that's exactly what you get when you play against the Brooklyn Nets, unless you're the Bucks, of course. So that's it. It's really hard to take away too much from that game in general. Let us now talk about another day with 6 games for DFS looking at Thursday. And let's start talking about those ones now. All right, so both of the main slates on DraftKings and FanDuel aren't including the Pelicans and Sacramento game, so we're not going to really go into that here. You can see all the projections for that over on Basketball Monster. Of course, no injury concerns in that game at all, but the first game we are going to talk about here is the Indiana Pacers and the Phoenix Suns. The Pacers are favored by 3, the total 228.5 points. Malcolm Brogdon is questionable with that neck strain that's bothered him. He's missed a couple of games from that. Victor Oladipo is fine to go, whereas the Suns, Kelly Oubre has been upgraded to doubtful. I still don't think he'll play, but I reckon if they keep winning, we will see Oubre appear at some point. If they lose this one, they might not go with it, but I reckon he might actually make a couple of appearances here. Let's see how that all goes, if it does actually happen. We're looking at DraftKings pricing today. Brogdon's at $6,800. I don't feel confident in that at all. $1,400 price rise for some reason. No thanks. Devin Booker at $8,300. Love that one for Book. He had 54 last game. He doesn't need 54 to even make value there, but he's a really good option. While Ravishing Rick Rubio is at 66. It's maybe marginally a little bit too high. Aaron Holiday is the one to watch, though. At 4,800, Holiday's going to start regardless, but if Brogdon's out, he can be a 30-point guy. If Brogdon plays, he's probably a 24, 25-point guy. So he's the one to watch to see what that status is on Brogdon. McConnell and, he's the only other point guard here. Javon Carter, we don't really need to look at those guys. At shooting guard, Oladipo's at $5,500. I love that price for Oladipo. He's come down $400. He only had 26 points in 27 minutes last game. I think he'll beat that. I think he's a 30-point type of guy here. I really like Oladipo. While McCall Bridges at $4,900, not the greatest DFS option. Campaign, been interesting. $3,400 for Payne. He's getting 20 points a game. Is that enough for me to get interested? Probably not. Do I trust him? Probably not. But he's giving you 6x every single game. And that is worth looking at if you want to squeeze some higher price players in. Justin Holiday, probably not the one to look at either. At small forward, McDermott, no. Cameron Johnson at $4,900. I don't mind that one. I think it's more of a cash play than a tournament play, but it's not bad. He's starting and getting the minutes. And then Tony Warren Jr., $8,400 for Warren on DraftKings. He's been fantastic. Another 49-point last game. The salary's gone up and up and up. I reckon it's fade time because he can't be this good continually. He's been really good, but nobody is this 70% shooter that Warren is. So I think there's going to be a drop-off. I reckon 8-4s with the spot where we fade him off. For your big man, Ayton at 7,200 is coming down because he hasn't been great, but he also hasn't been terrible. I think 7,200 is a pretty strong price. Miles Turner at 62, I also like that one. He's playing some pretty good basketball recently. And then you got Kaminsky, who is doing the opposite of playing some really good basketball. Let's go on to the next one. It's the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks. Jimmy Butler's out. Goran Dragic is questionable after spraining his ankle against Boston, and Wes Matthews is questionable again. Now, Budenholzer did say that the Bucks would be playing a regular rotation, not that first half minutes only for Giannis type scenario. So hopefully that is the case. And if Matthews is out, you'll get either George Hill or Dante DiVincenzo starting and getting both guys getting a boost to their minutes. At point guard, I mentioned Butler's out as well. Linnick replaced him last time. Dragic at $5,000. If he plays, I think it looks really good. Some debate about that at the moment, but if he plays, that looks like a good option to me. Kendrick Nunn at 41 has been struggling. He has had to deal with his coronavirus diagnosis and recovery, so maybe that's a part of it. But if there is no Dragic and no Butler, who the hell else is going to be the ball handler on this team? Nunn is going to have to play better, so I like him as a tournament option there. Well, George Hill at 38, not going to happen. Eric Bledsoe at 52, he's still ramping back up. And DiVincenzo at 51, maybe if Matthews out, he can give us some value. At shooting guard, Tyler Heroes at 36 would be a really strong tournament guy. And in fact, if Dragic is out, I think there is some cash value in Hero amazingly. I don't know that for sure, but I think there is a possibility that could work out. Wes Matthews, no thank you. Iguodala, Dunk Robinson, Pat Connaughton. Robinson will be okay, but he's at 5,000. I think he can get there. I think he's going to take a lot of shots, so he's at least one worth looking at there. At small forward, Middleton's at 7,600. Of course, last game dropped his averages, only the 16 points in 16 minutes, but he should play more than that. I'm just not sure that 7,600 is the right price point for him. Derek Jones Jr., not really the best option. And then on to the big men. That's where the magic's going to happen. Hopefully, Kelly Linnick at 4,800. 41 points in the start for Butler last game. We don't expect that, but we don't have to expect that. If he can get 30 points, then he smashed that value. I really like Linnick here. Jay Crowder at 4,400, I think has some tournament upside, while Yanni at 11,000. There's a risk with Antetokounmpo because if they limit his minutes, you're screwed. So maybe you could throw him into some tournament lineups, but I would not want to rely upon what they're going to do. Adebayo's at 7,700. Love it. With no Butler, absolutely love Adebayo here. And Brook Lopez sat out last game. He should be back, and I think he can get you 30 points. He's been really strong in the bubble. I think he looks to be a pretty good option. Marvin Williams, Robin Lopez, they're not the options that we are looking for. The next game up, the Clippers and the Mavericks. The Clippers are favored by 4. The total's 231.5. Seth Curry is doubtful for Dallas, while on the Clippers side, Montrezl Harrell and Patrick Beverley are out. Harrell's been out the whole time. Beverley's been in and out. So Reggie Jackson will get another start. We should also get some more minutes coming from Lou Williams and hopefully another decent enough Ivica Zubac's game. With Curry out, JJ Barea started last game. He didn't get the minutes. It was Trey Burke mainly, but Burke didn't really deliver. At 3,400, Burke is really only a tournament guy, while Lou Williams at 5,000, I think, is also a tournament guy. We just don't know how those minutes are going to go. Doncic is at 11,300. I'd rather spend that on him than spend the 11,000 on Giannis. He dropped 84 last game. He's playing a shit ton of minutes. He's putting up so many big numbers. I really like Doncic at that price. You got Reggie Jackson at 58, so that's a big jump for Jackson. I'm not sure I feel super confident about him. He's going to have opportunities, clearly, but enough to get that many points? I don't know. Barea and Delon Wright, no thanks. At shooting guard, Timmy Hardaway's at 59. Yeah, it looks okay. I think there's some tournament upside there for Timmy, but not super reliable. Shamet, Magruder, no. Small forward, Paul George, love the Beatle there at 7,800. Great value, while the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
He comes through at 8,700. I think there is some value in there at him. That would be a pretty good price for Leonard, assuming he plays the minutes. And then Marcus Morris at 4,200, only a tournament hit and hope sort of spot. Finney Smith was great last game. He against the Kings, 4,700, dropped in 39 points. I'm not really confident in him scoring that much or getting to the line as much as he did in that game. So I think that's probably just an outlier performance. And then onto your big men, Kleber's at 4,400, no thanks. Porzingis at 85.
Percentages.
8,500 for Porzingis looks okay, but I think we can probably do better. Zubats at 48, really like the floor value and upside for Zubats there. And then you got Jermichael Green, Patrick Patterson, and Boban Marjanovic. I don't really think they're the guys that are going to get the job done for us. Unfortunately for those guys and their families. Next up, the Portland Trailblazers and the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are on a back-to-back, so there's a lot of question marks. Jamal Murray, Eche Homo, the headmaster. He's questionable, hasn't played yet. Barton Will Barton, also, we don't know if he's going to play. Gary Harris hasn't played yet.
Nice, Gary!
So we don't know what this rotation is going to look like. We do know that Michael Porter Jr. is getting every opportunity in the world. And if those three guys are out again, he's going to have another big chance. I also think there's a pretty big chance that you'll get Paul Millsap resting. It is a back-to-back. That's not confirmed. That's sort of how I'm just predicting it at this point. For Portland, they've got a clean bill of health. At point guard, CJ McCollum, 7,900. Getting a lot of minutes. I reckon we can probably do better, though. 4,700 for Monty Morris is absolutely the one we want to look at if Jamal Murray happens to sit. As for Murray himself at 7,400, way too high for a guy potentially playing his first game after a hamstring problem. For your shooting guards, Gaz Trent's at 44, and while he's playing well, it doesn't really translate to great DFS numbers, so I'm pretty much out on him. While Barton at 67, Torrey Craig, Gary Harris. Barton and Harris will have low minutes if they play. Torrey Craig, not a good producer. At small forward, Porter's at 6,400. He just dropped 54 today, so I feel pretty good, especially if those guys are out. He might turn into a fade if all three of those guys play, but I still think he'll start and play good minutes as Harris, Barton, and Murray start to ramp back up. Mello's at 5,600. I think there's really strong floor value in Mello, and he can be a tournament play there. And then onto your big men, Mason Plumlee at 3,600. He does well against this team for some reason, his former team. Hey, revenge games. I'm not super keen on him. There could be an opportunity if Millsap's out, though. Zach Collins is a tournament guy, while Big Chungus, Nikola Jokic, really strong for cash, really strong for tournaments, and same as Yusuf Nurkic, who's at 8,900, and I think he's probably got another 50 in him here, to be honest. I think both Nurkic and Jokic are in play and can put up some good numbers. Whiteside, of course, he is pretty much just an afterthought now for Portland, which is wild considering what happened this season. The last game of the day is the Lakers and the Rockets. The Lakers on a back-to-back here. Russell Westbrook is questionable. If he is out, you're going to see Ben McLemore starting, more minutes for Austin Rivers as well, and of course a big bump in usage for James Harden. Westbrook is at 9,000, so if he plays, I think that's at least worth looking at. While Caruso, the other point guard there for the Lakers, Austin Rivers, not going to do it. The big money, of course, comes for James Harden and LeBron, 10-7 and 10-5. Harden at 10-7 would be an absolute cash lock to me if Westbrook is out. He's pretty close anyway, but if Westbrook's out, I really, really like that one. Dan Green at 32 as a shooting guard, no thanks. KCP, no thank you. Dion Waiters at 37. I'd much rather take a flyer on Waiters than Green and KCP at this point, but still just really for tournaments. While McLemore at 31. If Westbrook's out, I like that as a tournament flyer as well. For your small forwards, Kuzma's at 45. Dwight Howard sat out on Wednesday. We don't know if he's going to sit. I don't even know what day it is. What day is it? Sat out on Wednesday. We don't know if he's going to play Thursday. So really hard to get too excited about using him. But if he is out, Kuzma is the guy that hopefully can get a little bit of an extra bump. Covington at 6,500. I don't feel super great about that one. And then Dan House at 49. Really good value for cash. He's like a 30-point guy most nights. That's good value. McGee's at 34, only for tournaments, really. It's really hard to trust him ongoing. 10-3 for Anthony Davis. Looks really, really strong. And I like Jeff Green at 3,900.
My name is Jeff.
He's been producing some really big lines. If we go ahead now and just have a look at how this looks on FanDuel and some value picks over there. Porter at 55 looks great. Reggie Jackson, Jeremy Grant, Kelly Linnick, Crowder, Ayton, Jokic, Miles Turner, Paul George, Oladipo, Aaron Holiday. Some value in all of those guys over there. Guys, we are done here. Don't forget, subscribe Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. And leave a comment down below. Give a thumbs up here on the old YouTube, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.